Well, this week is National Scams Awareness Week. So, how can you spot a scam and how can we all better protect ourselves from being duped in the cyber world? Here to tell us more is Crispin Kerr, the Australia and New Zealand Country Manager from Proofpoint. Good morning to you, Crispin. Thanks for joining us again on the show.
Hi, Lana. Nice to be here. And hi, Ben. How are you?
Yeah, doing really well. Very excited to have you on this morning to find out more.
Crispin,
Great, thank you.
since COVID-19, have we actually seen an increase in scams? What are you seeing in this space?
So yeah, absolutely. There's been an increase in scams. If you look at actually the ACCC statistics, there was 167,000 scams reported last year, and again, these are just reported scams. There's been an increase year over year around 33%, but primarily it's the fact just that the themes in general, based on coronavirus, have actually gravitated towards coronavirus as the main sort of lure for things like phishing scams targeting individuals.
What would you say? So, what is the National Scam Awareness Week 2020 about? Can you summarize that for us?
Yeah, sure. So it's an initiative by the Scams Awareness Network that's aimed at raising awareness of scams targeting individuals in Australia and New Zealand, and also trying to disrupt them. So this year's theme that's running over the course of this week is putting a main focus on the dangers of identity theft in scams.
So, Crispin, apparently there's daily themes all week happening with this. What is today's theme for Wednesday, the 19th of August, and how does this relate to Proofpoint, your company?
Yeah, sure. So look, today's theme is around dating and social media-based scams, romance-based scams. I guess the thing that the themes over the course of this week have in common. So Mondays was phishing. There's another day this week that's around hacking, business email compromise, and malware. But the thing that these things have in common, as well as dating and romance-based schemes, is that they're all targeting individuals. And in order for these scams to be effective, they require an individual to actually take an action. So obviously, from a dating and romance-based perspective, responding to the individual and building up that sort of trust, in that person. They're typically financially motivated, but the same can be said for things like phishing scams. If there's a link in an email, if the individual itself doesn't, himself or herself doesn't click on that link, that scam or that threat won't be effective. From a Proofpoint perspective, we focus on protecting people, and a big part of what we do actually is stopping these sorts of scams or threats before they reach individuals. But also, we put a big focus on actually training individuals and providing tools to organizations to help them actually recognize these scams if they do hit them in their inbox.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I think we all can have this happen to us, but what are some of the most common scams that you can see that you've probably been able to observe in Australia over the last 12 months?
Yeah, so back to Alana's point around coronavirus. So the biggest theme that we've seen and the types of scams that we've seen have all been coronavirus related. So in particular, seeing government assistance type scams where individuals at least are trying to get early access to things like super. And then, given the time of year, and this is the same every time this year, and that's tax-related scams. So those can be broken down into two boxes effectively. One is legitimate websites which have been compromised, and the other is tax-related scams using emails, SMSs, and phone calls.
So, Crispin, I guess, what are the red flags that we need to be looking for, and how do individuals and businesses, I guess, protect themselves from the scams? How can you identify them?
Yeah, so there's a few things. I mean, if you see an email or a phone call, or receive a phone call or an SMS for that matter, that's pressing you into taking an action, then you should be extremely cautious and suspect about that. So if an email comes through and is asking you to potentially might be a tax-related fine if you don't hand in your return quickly, asking you to click asking you to click on a link. There's also things like, individuals can they can do things like use a password manager. Something complex passwords would be helpful. I think we had this conversation last time, Alana, but
yes.
certainly using lengthy complex passwords, and then also
I haven't changed a single password, Crispin. You'd be so angry at me.
You really?
Crispin was like, "You've got to change it. What are you doing?" And I was like,
"Someone is going to watch this, and they're going to realize that you're an easy target." So I'd highly recommend moving to that password manager that we talked about. Look, businesses as well. Be wary of emails, phone calls, SMSs that are trying to press you into providing any kind of information. Be skeptical of links in emails. And then from a business perspective, the similar sorts of things apply, but businesses can do a little bit more in the sense that they can invest in robust security solutions. They should continue to test the technologies that they use to stop these types of threats in the first place. And obviously, if these solutions are no longer effective or not as effective as they once were, then they can look for new technologies. But the biggest thing for me, and particularly given the theme of this week, is these threats are targeting individuals, and organizations can invest in security awareness programs to better help users or individuals to recognize these sorts of threats. Oftentimes, individuals are seen as the weakest link in a business from a security perspective. The threat hits them, they click on that link, they potentially, the organization potentially gets breached or compromised. But through security awareness training programs, they can actually be turned into being part of the company's security posture and actually be a really effective control against these types of threats.
Well, I tell you what, I think one of the biggest take-homes for me is knowing that, it could happen to you. I think a lot of people always think, oh, that's not going to happen to me, but it possibly can. So making sure Alana has a better password is a step in the right direction.
This time.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It was fantastic to be able to find out a little bit how we can get scammed and how to avoid being scammed.
Thanks, Crispin.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks, Alana.
Crispin Kerr there from Proofpoint.